What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's Inner Circle episode. So I hope you all had a really awesome week. I've definitely had a pretty decent week here. Hasn't been quite as cold. There hasn't been snow. It's been a balmy 6 degrees pretty much throughout the day. No real fluctuations, but at least it isn't raining. So this week there is a few things that I kind of wanted to cover off. Hopefully you might have seen the new kind of video series that I've been doing and putting on Facebook. So it's going to be called Fact or Fiction. And each week I'm basically going to have a look at the science into a particular episode. I dropped a video this morning on detox diets. Now I know that's not necessarily something that you guys are super interested in, but it's worth having a look at anyway and getting some knowledge. If you are interested, check it out. Also, it's some pretty cool video editing kind of stuff that I'm getting into, so hopefully that excites you for future projects and things like that. The other thing is that yesterday I released an article on 5 tips to manage your nutrition when life gets crazy. And I know based upon some of your reports each week that probably applies to a few of you. So go ahead and check that out and read it. And that's actually one of the things that I hadn't planned on talking about within this video until about maybe an hour or two ago when I was talking to my client Nelson, who runs his own business as well. So he's within Canberra. It's a tennis school kind of business, things like that. Absolutely killing it, putting out some cool content, some videos, things like that. But this time of year he gets absolutely blasted with kind of schools and programs and things like that. So when we were having a chat about that, he obviously said that, you know, like half the week he's really good, the other half he's not necessarily bad, but he's not really on point as much, and kind of asking for my advice on that. And I came up with a bit of an exercise, I guess, for him to do, but it's something that probably I'm going to do as well, because actually when I was thinking about it, it was something that I think would be beneficial for me currently being where I am in my business, and it's probably going to be beneficial for most people. And I'm actually thinking about creating it as a workbook, like a really short kind of workbook type thing, giving an example for my life and then how to do it for you. But the basic premise is that you write down 3 days. Day A is going to be your perfect day. So if things were perfect, how would that day look? What would the plan look like? What would you be doing? You know, what meals would you be eating? What are the key behaviors and like skills and everything else, habits that you would be implementing in that day? Day B is the more realistic day. So probably looking or aiming for that perfect day, but the realistic day is like, okay, well, if we can't do plan A to perfection, what's the next best option? So kind of, you know, it might not require quite as much effort, but you're still getting the majority of the big rocks on paper, and you're still kind of working towards your goal. So writing that down as well, so you have a kind of idea. Plan C is the basically my life is fucked, or, you know, when shit hits the fan plan. I might actually call it that. And it essentially is writing down when life gets super busy and stressful, what is the bare minimum that you can do to continue moving towards your goals, and really get specific on that. So like, what are the meals that are super easy, super quick? Maybe they're fail-safe meals, maybe they're things you can buy from Woolworths or Coles and just literally throw together in 2 minutes, but it's still going to hit your goals and move you in the right direction. And that might just be calories and protein. It might just be protein depending on your goal. It could just be focusing on getting some vegetables and protein. Whatever it is, it's that bare minimum, and the thing that's like, okay, well, when life isn't going to plan, let's just focus on doing this. We don't need to add more stress to our day. If we can just do these things, we're still going to be making improvements. So have a think about that. And the idea is that we always set out to have that A, that perfect day, but realistically that doesn't often happen. And when we don't have a plan B or a plan C or a plan D or however long you go, often we end up resorting back to plan Z, which is the fuck it plan, where we just kind of do whatever we want. We end up getting Uber Eats or ordering in, and usually it comes along with that kind of unrestricted, mindless type eating pattern where we end up binging on things because we feel like we've fucked up. And that's actually when we do ingest a lot of calories and we can set ourselves back a little bit. So sorry, my camera just died halfway through. I'm trying to remember what I was saying. I know it's to do with the nutrition when busy, the plan for when shit hits the fan. Yeah, so I'm gonna create a little bit of a workbook to go along with that, basically just to get your ideas out on paper, to have a plan for when shit doesn't go to plan, which saves you the mental power and having to think about it in the moment, because we know we're not very good at times, especially when we're stressed, at making good decisions on the fly. It's a lot better if we have some things kind of ingrained in your head going, okay, yep, I know I can do this instead of this. We work a lot better in that sense. Cool, so what I wanted to actually talk about this week, which was something that came up with one of my clients, I believe it was Jody, but I'm not too sure. Essentially what it was talking about fat loss and how fat loss isn't a switch. So what I mean by that is that when we create a calorie deficit and fat is being used, like stored fat's being used to source that energy from, to fuel ourselves throughout the day, if the scale doesn't show a weight drop, doesn't necessarily mean that we aren't losing body fat. In fact, if we are doing the right things and we are creating a calorie deficit, there is almost definitely going to be fat loss occurring. What's happening is that generally something is masking that scale weight loss. So if we think about it, and this is particularly for smaller females or people with lower energy expenditures, is that we can't create as large of a deficit through our intake because otherwise you're just not going to be eating enough food. So what that essentially means is that you're never going to have really fast fat loss. It's unfair, but that's unfortunately the case. And so when we're talking about fast fat loss, you know, if we're talking about daily fat loss, we could potentially be talking about, you know, like 20, 30, 50 grams a day, which is quite small in the grand scheme of things. And that's if we do everything exactly to plan. And so when things are that small, if we're thinking about that like day to day, that's how much fat we're losing. And what we know is that things like water and food and glycogen and things like that can change our body weight from anywhere from half a kilo to a kilo a day. You can see how easily it could be, if a few of those factors are off, to mask the actual fat loss that's going on. And the reason that I say fat loss isn't like a switch is because if we are doing the right things, it's kind of like a drip feed. Like, it's just going on in the background. Fat is going to be slowly decreasing within the body. We just might not see it on the scale. And it's not like, you know, if you are losing fat, like let's say things are trending downwards or we're seeing results and it's going at a pretty steady speed, generally we don't see that just suddenly stop. What generally happens is, let's say you're losing half a kilo a week for a couple of weeks, and then it goes down and it might be a quarter of a kilo or a little bit less. And then eventually after a couple of weeks further, we might get to a point where we're not seeing very large losses over the course of a week or two. And that's typically how it works, is that the body just doesn't go, bam, I'm shutting off fat loss. It's more of an adaptive period where the body is reducing its expenditure to the point where we slowly close that energy gap. And so that's what I mean by fat loss isn't a switch. So the key thing to remember, and this is, like I said, especially important for smaller females or people with low energy expenditures, is that we can't create a large deficit, which means we're not going to see particularly large losses. And it also means it can be easier for other factors to mask, especially if fat loss is slow. So I hope that makes sense. If you want me to go into a little bit more detail about this specifically, let me know. Or maybe I'll even write an article about it because it's quite interesting. I think it's quite pertinent. But if that is something you would like, just let me know. That's all I really wanted to talk about this week, guys. I am in the process of creating a recipe ebook, which should hopefully be out soon. I've just got to cook some of the things, take some nice photos, that kind of thing, which takes a little bit of time. And there's a few other bits and pieces, like I said in an email recently, that I'm working on. So all in all, trying to bring you guys a ton of value. Hopefully you're having an awesome week. Keep killing it. Look forward to hearing from you guys over the next couple of days. Remember to get your reports in, and if there's anything that you want me to talk about in these videos or cover, please feel free to ask in your emails. Awesome. Have a good week, guys.